Welcome back. It's Loaded and Rolling Live, and I am Thomas Wasson. Always a pleasure for everyone to come join us here. And we're going to have a wonderful show today. Going to be talking about cargo theft, freight fraud, preventative strategies, and also how AI is changing the game in technology, which hopefully we can also use to prevent freight fraud, among other things. And so let's welcome on Phil Schmidbauer. He's Vice President of Solutions Design at ODW Logistics. And Phil, always a pleasure getting to catch up. It's been a little wild. Have you seen any March madness, or is the market more like March sadness?
Yeah, I think it's more like March sadness, Thomas. Haven't seen much madness out there. It has been a while. Thanks for having me back. Good to see you again.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. And so in this era of March sadness at the moment, instead of brackets, folks are trying to open up doors and do freight fraud. One of the big things has been freight theft. And I know that it really didn't seem like an issue before COVID from my experiences. And tell us a little bit about, give us a quick round the world. What the heck has been going on in the freight fraud space?
Thieves get smarter and smarter every day. It's crazy. And you're right. It wasn't as big of an issue. I think we've seen it over the years, but people have just gotten smarter. I've seen some really crazy things people have tried to do, whether it be stealing a broker's identity or a carrier's identity and pretending you're somebody who you're not. Sending in carriers that the carrier thinks they're doing everything they're being told to do by their dispatcher. And they end up taking that freight to another terminal where it's cross-docked and put on another carrier who thinks they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? That's what they're being told by the person that booked the load. Even the person cross-docking the freight is just doing what they're asked. I've seen some very elaborate schemes of people stealing freight. And it's been a hot topic for the past couple of years now. To your point, it's gotten worse and worse. And I think we're getting smarter at defending against it. But man, it's been some of the things you see people try to get away with is very creative and difficult to catch.
Did you hear about that fraud one at the port of like LA and Long Beach where it was like tens of millions of dollars, and they were cross docking it. And it was some like Chinese dudes with the Chinese carrier and some other people. They all got in cahoots, and like they would purposely bring it off the thing, unseal it, put it in a little warehouse, fill it with fake stuff. These were like handbags and stuff, reseal it, throw it back on the stacks, and then some other schmuck like picked it up. Like, are we at that level, or is that kind of out of the ordinary? Or, what's the kind of vibe on that? Because I feel like that may be one of the one percenters.
I have to say that I saw one a couple of years ago where it was creative here in the Midwest, where somebody picked up a load, and it's even hard to replicate and explain what happened, but the driver took it to where he was being told to take it by his dispatch. And so somebody that was in dispatch told him to take it to a facility in Indianapolis, transload it onto another truck, and then that truck disappeared into nowhere. No one was tracking it. When initially the person thought that truck was going from wherever in the Midwest to the destination, and that driver was told to stop somewhere. So I'm telling you, like, just crazy things out there. People stealing identities, people calling drivers saying that they're dispatch and they're not, and having a driver take it somewhere else. The loading facility had no clue. They were just, I got a call and somebody asked me to translate this for them. No problem. It happens all the time. It's nuts out there, Thomas, and hopefully we're getting a hold of it. But I mean, the FBI can't keep up with this stuff. The number one people who care about it is the insurance providers who are trying to help, figure out what's going on here and solve some of these issues.
That's one of the things I heard. It's like interstate commerce, and the agencies are like, well, you picked the load up in Ohio, it may have got stolen in Arkansas, you found out in California, and it's like, who do I call? Who do I deal with? I mean, I guess for the enforcement measure, it's really hard just to figure out who the heck I need to call. Like, that would confuse me just to figure out, do I call the Arkansas people and then let the Ohio people know? Like, how to even solve these things?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's not an easy solve. And to your point, like, people are trying to figure out who's in charge, who has time to deal with this. It's been a racket, and it's no fun when something happens. So it's all about preventative measures to make sure you don't get caught in that train wreck of a disaster.
Well, let's talk about preventative measures. I know it used to be you can just have a simple seal or a large padlock, which I love the fact that was my favorite thing, finding out that, so wait, this thing is secured with a plastic seal. Yeah, and it's got a unique cover on it. You can just buy the seals at the truck stops. And they're like, yeah, you can do that. And it's like, oh, that's really safe. So let's talk about preventative measures. I'm assuming the first step is I need a giant lock that's hard to break.
Well, I think the first thing is making sure you know who you're giving your freight to. So we run into this a lot we have a lot of preventative measures at our facilities that we're managing. And even if we're not managing the facilities, our customers' facilities that they're shipping out of, there's a lot of technologies out there that we can use to help identify first, are we booking a load with a person that's known, doesn't have any fraud alerts or anything? There's a lot of technologies out there that people are using today. But making sure that the driver that shows up is a driver you expect to show up. So we ask for a driver's name and phone number, have his USDOT number, MC number, as much information as we can about the driver so that when he shows up, we can say, hey, who are you? What's your MC number? Validate that the truck matches the MC number. And then you're first off giving the load to the person that you intend to give that load to. And that's really the most important piece. Are you giving it to the person you intend for it to be given to, and then tracking that person? So, today everybody's tracking using different websites, whether it's FourKites or whatever other tracking mechanism you're using, but making sure you're tracking that driver then moving forward from there so you know where it's at.
And I mean that does give way to the rise of other third party. I used to be like only RMIS. You'd fill out an RMIS packet. Now we have like Highway, Carrier Sure, Carrier 411, Freight Guards.
Yep.
When we're looking at some of those measures, I know people complain about Freight Guards, but is there like a unified database of, hey, this is a bad guy, I shouldn't do it, or are these companies forced to kind of have their own naughty and nice list in terms of carriers that they're working with?
Yeah, I mean, you combine into the technologies. I don't know if there's a uniform database anywhere. We subscribe to some technologies that help us on the back end to identify it. We had one not long ago where we caught it in the act, so we made sure that nothing was stolen, but we found a load that came to us, and the alert didn't pop up until after the load, like literally the day of. We were one of the first ones to. So somebody's got to be the first person to report an issue, right? So a new issue of somebody's identity being stolen. And those reports are only going to identify theft or fraud of somebody's identity once it happens and once it's reported. So there's always a first person that's going to be the potential to get caught on those things. But there are technologies out there that definitely help. And there's processes in place. Some customers might put tracking devices on their freight so they see where it goes. We had an issue we were tracking a driver. He showed up. Luckily, our person took the driver's cell phone number, put it into our system, and we started tracking that driver. Come to find out, the dispatcher we thought we were talking to wasn't his dispatch. It was somebody that was going to literally not pay the driver and take our money and just disappear into the sunset. So we figured it out pretty quickly when the dispatcher wasn't giving us updates on the driver. So we ended up getting a hold of the driver, finding out he was there ready for the delivery. And we had to explain to him, like, you're not going to get paid by these people. We ended up paying him directly and making sure the driver got paid for his work so that we weren't out the money in the middleman. But again, we caught that because of our processes we have in place to make sure we get a driver's cell phone number and know who we're giving that load to.
That happened to me one time. I booked a load with one of these brokerages off of a load board, and the first mistake was we showed up at the shipper and they said, "Oh, you're ex-carrier," and I was like, "No, we're not ex-carrier." Well, they sent us the rate con. They forgot to change the carrier name for our correct MC and DOT. So then that whole thing happens, and they're like, "Oh," and then they're making up these excuses. "No, no, no, we've got the load, blah 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 blah." But like when you're thinking about it, I'm assuming the first big red flag for sketchy behavior is going to be they're failing to track, they're failing to update, they're not giving you 100% transparency. I'm assuming they're just not doing their basic job.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to. When you start having, you can just tell when somebody's not being straight with you, and they're not giving you answers to questions you have, or a lot of our work, a lot of the red flags are before the driver even shows up. Is the phone number that the person's calling us from legit? Does it match our database from the phone number for that carrier? We do VIN. We have some systems that'll track and make sure that the VIN number that the carrier is sending in on the truck is actually on the insurance, because we've seen before where a carrier will show up and that driver is not contracted under their insurance. Then you're really in trouble and don't have a load insured. So a lot of things we're double checking and verifying on every load on a daily basis to make sure that we're covered and our customers are covered from that standpoint. It's a lot of details to keep track of, for sure.
Let's switch gears a little bit here. One of the things as well, hopefully AI and technologies can help us find them better for the fraudsters. But, one of the things that I guess, and I'm assuming this can actually directly translate into AI tools as well, is that I'm hearing a lot of things about AI and TMSs. What are you all's thoughts on the AI? Is this something where it's just kind of a buzzword, or even at like ODW, is this something that you can plug these things in to help augment the workflow compared to, it's usually very manual process and a very people intensive process doing this combination supply chain.
Yeah, AI is an interesting topic. We're definitely not going to be early adopters from all the technology. We've tested some things. We've looked at, there's AI bots that can basically be a broker and sell a load, through the telephone. And so we've tested some of those technologies and looked at some of those things, and they're interesting. Our business is a little bit different in the way that we operate in our systems and what our real value is to our customers through consolidation and stuff. But I think from an AI standpoint, there's definitely technologies we use in the background. From a billing standpoint, they can read an invoice and put it into an EDI 214 for us, or 210 for us, sorry, and move that through the system. There's certain things we're using and integrating those into our systems to make our process more efficient. And there's certainly technologies out there that are really cool and sound neat, and we haven't really adopted them just yet. It doesn't mean we're not going to, but we're kind of, I don't want to say we're the last ones, but we'll kind of process through some of that stuff and make sure that we really value the quality of service we give to customers. So we'll test a lot of those things before we go and throw them in. But we definitely adopt some different technologies, and it's interesting. I mean, you heard about all these automated load boards, and guess what? They're not all automated, and there's things that just haven't worked out, and some companies have gone under trying to deliver those. So it's that wave of what's really going to stick, and where is it going to add value in the network for us.
Have you tested any of them out yet and seen the uncanny valley? I got to hear one from a large brokerage accounts receivable, and it was like you could tell halfway through it's trying, but then it just stops and it randomly like stops like this when it's trying to talk, and it's like, what's going on, man? It's have you all seen that yet? Is it still this weird uncanny valley on some of these voice agents?
The only one that I've been on, we have some people that have tested different things. The one that I've been on was where we called and tried to buy a load through an automated broker, and it was a test site, so like we were kind of negotiating with the computer, and it was pretty impressive. I mean, it's impressive what some of this stuff does, and what some of these technologies do. But I haven't been forefront of testing it myself, but we've tested a couple different things here and there. But we like to bolt on technology, kind of supports our business processes and makes them more efficient.
And thinking about the TMSs as well. I mean, I love the TMS convos. The irony being it's so evergreen is because everyone still uses Excel if you're a small enough carrier. So it's like, oh, you mean I can actually do all my workflow? When we're thinking about it from like a TMS standpoint, anything in particular that any cool recent things you've been hearing about? Or I know, do you guys have your own homebrew TMS, or are you using stuff off the rack?
No, so we use we use 3G TMS, and then we build around that today, and we work on building infrastructure. We have some what I'll call homegrown apps that we use that tie into that. And really, what our value prop is less around. And honestly, it's one of those things that kind of drives me a little bit nuts. Everybody's worried about going and finding the best rate, and we're going to have an AI chatbot that's going to go get you the best rate, and you're not going to have to worry about brokering that load to somebody. And really the value to a customer that we find is optimization. So I don't care if you have the best rate in the world. If your trailer is half empty, that rate isn't really that good when you look at it as a percentage of how much freight you have on that trailer, right? So our goal is to optimize those loads, to build better, smarter supply chains, identify waste and eliminate it throughout the supply chain. And really it's about faster, better, cheaper. How do we give that to our customers? And that's really, higher quality, lowest cost, shortest lead time is really what we're trying to drive for our customers. And I don't think we talk enough in the supply chain about optimizing what we're shipping, how we're shipping it, and what it looks like when it's being shipped.
I completely agree. There was it Load Smart? There was a brokerage or somebody who put together some research that talked about how most trailers are like half full. And you're just driving down the road in like a half full trailer. And I think it was because it's tied into some net zero carbon initiative. But I wonder if that's the same thing. What you all think of is I guess with the technology and the AI and the tools and the stuff, you can finally answer that question of I should not have ran that. I could have ran X, Y, and Z. I mean, how is that something that we're kind of like in the present day? Or is that something where folks are still testing and it's like a never ending David versus Goliath? Am I optimizing my?
Yeah, I don't know that That's a good question. I don't know that the technology does it all. Some of it is just the way we set up our business. Some of it is the way we ask our customers to think about ordering processes with their customers. So we do a lot of retail. Walmart, some of the big retailers have consolidation programs they've set up, and we kind of do that out of our warehousing footprint. And then even when we're working with customers direct that ship out of their own plants, we're working with them on hey, you've got a truckload tomorrow scheduled to go to Texas, and this LTL you're trying to ship today. I know you want to get it out the door today, but we can make that a two-stop Texas truckload if we just ship it tomorrow with this truckload. So it's thinking about the way you're delivering to your customers. And in reality, that truckload's going to make it there before the LTL anyway. So it's thinking about the way orders are processed. It's thinking about the way that shipments are delivered to customers and really trying to build multi-stop truckloads, do pool deliveries where, we've got a half a truck that has to go to California. You don't have anything to do with the other half of the truck. So we put some LTL freight going to California on the tail end, drop it off at an LTL carrier in California on the way, a little regional provider. They give you really good rates. And now you've got a tool-stop pool delivery that saved the customer a bunch of money. And it's just thinking differently about the supply chain. If it really gets in your crawl that half of your trailer is empty going out the door, then think about the way you're doing it so you're not shipping a half trailer empty out the door. And there's just thinking about your supply chain differently and trying to optimize what you're doing.
I think that's really cool because I remembered running some of the line haul. I think it was UPS and a few others back in my full truckload days. They would use full truckload as line haul, hub to hubs. But I never thought of like partialing it out because it feels like half the industry. I guess if you're on the carrier side, half your brain is just, how do I fill this box? I don't care if it's half filled. I just need to make money off the box. But if you have that warehouse footprint, now you're thinking, I have a certain amount of stuff in this that I need to move out of this. So it could be a real detriment if you're not thinking of ways to actually, like you said, double dip almost your queso and your salsa by sending it all in a similar direction and just adding the stop pay.
Yeah,
I haven't eaten lunch yet, so I'm thinking of food.
Yeah, someone's thinking about food. Yeah, no, it's just thinking smarter, not harder. Great, you got $1 a mile on that lane. Merry Christmas. Your trailer's still half empty. I could have paid $1.75 for a truck and still got a better cost per pound if I fill my trailer up. So just thinking smarter, not harder. That's really where you drive a lot more value in transportation. That's what we found.
Having the warehouse footprint, inventory, LMI, people said there's tons of inventory or not. Is there any trend among any of these large retailers that is business a booming in the warehouse, or does it look like, there's a lot of slack and people are waiting to move all their goods in? Has there been a lot of activity over the past few months in terms of, I guess, since January? How's the year been?
The year's been I guess it's been a little slow. We've seen a little bit of activity with the on and off with tariffs. You see some people try to pull some inventory ahead to get it in before tariffs hit, and then the tariffs last 3 days and they're gone again and waiting another month. So there's been a little bit of uncertainty, which I think has driven some activity and people trying to figure out what they're going to do. I wouldn't say volumes are up. I would say that from what we've seen from transportation, it's still a fairly slow market. You might see a little bit of movement in rates because of weather, capacity in certain markets, but in general, we're not seeing a whole lot of movement. It's not a strong outlook, I would say, from a volume standpoint. I don't see demand really shooting up anywhere. We've seen some carriers go out of business. I've seen, just agnostic of transportation, I've seen some pretty big companies recently making moves from a reorganization standpoint. And some of those things are just indicative of what's happening in the economy. You've got, the Kroger Albertsons deal seems to have fallen through and you've got some heartache there. So I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot going on and not a ton of positive signs right now from that standpoint, from a demand standpoint.
That's what I was curious about as well, because the demand has been the biggest challenge. We have less capacity in the market, but now demand is less. And then there's also private fleets and railroads and LTLs trying to take from truckload. It doesn't feel like a good time to be truckload at the moment. But, looking ahead, we're looking like retail compliance and vendors. I always wondered about this. Is that something where the compliance rate is that I'm going to send you X amount of stuff and you for sure have to store it? Or is it kind of like truckload where I tender you loads and you have to take like 99% of it? What does that kind of look like, the compliance side?
Yeah, retail compliance is more about, showing up at the retailers on time and in full. So they want, 90+% or 95+% on time, meeting their standards. Now, every retailer has a different standard. Some of them, if you use a drop trailer carrier, you can show up 2 days early or the day of the due date. But it's about meeting those different standards on time and then with the product that they've actually ordered. And it sounds a lot easier than it really is because every retailer has different standards. If you're shipping truckload versus LTL, you have to find the right LTL carrier, somebody that has enough volume where they can deliver consistently. And even then, the retailer may not be able to take your freight. Some retailers are better than others about taking your freight when you schedule an appointment. There's a certain retailer that I won't name that you can show up on time with all the product on the truck and they tell you, sorry, we don't have room. We can't take that freight for another week. And then we're scrambling to figure out logistical solutions to hold on to that stuff. So it's really just about delivering to the retailers on time and in full, and then understanding the rules so that making sure you have the right carrier on the load, making sure that you're in compliance with their rules, with the way the freight's labeled, with the way the BOL looks, all of that information, because the retailers really hit their customers with fines in every angle. Bad pallet, label's not how I wanted it to be. Bill of lading didn't look right, didn't have certain reference numbers on the pallet, like all over the place. So it's really about understanding those rules and playing in the guidelines.
And looking at trailer pools, that's a favorite topic of mine. Is that something where, I see some customers, you give them a trailer pool, they're like the best customers ever. Procter and Gamble in Ontario, California, give them a trailer pool, wonderful people. Try to do a live load, God help you. You're gonna be like, they're gonna turn you away and try to reset it. You can't even get into. So when we're thinking of that, when we're looking at these solutions and engineering solutions, is it the first solution always a trailer pool, or is there other kind of like strategies and other like low hanging fruit that you kind of approach folks with to say, look, here's how we can make this a little better?
Yeah, it's a good question. I try to think of everything as like trailer pool is almost like an inventory buffer, right? It gives you a little bit of buffer to work with from the carrier standpoint to drop the trailer, and the driver can keep moving. So it kind of keeps things moving, keeps the driver moving, and doesn't keep the dock waiting. So the dock has more flexibility, and so does the driver. But then what happens is if you get too big of a trailer pool, the carrier is complaining because they've got a trailer sitting over here and they want to charge you because they're not turning the trailer frequently enough, right? It's an underutilized asset. So there's always a constant battle in logistics, whether it's a facility, and you might have too much space over here. Like if you have a customer that's got a lot of peaks and valleys to their volumes, some months they have 14,000 pallets, the next month they have 10,000 pallets. Well, they only want to charge you for the space they're using. Well, that's great. But when you fluctuate in volume like that, there's empty space in a building, like somebody's got to pay for it. So all of those things to me are almost like understanding the value of an asset and the utilization of that asset. And it's no different than utilizing a trailer. If you're going to pay $1,000 to send a trailer from point A to point B, you better fill that trailer up because you're going to pay $1,000 no matter what. So it's kind of the same with any asset, right? And the utilization of that asset. We think of transportation the same way. That's really what it's about. And a trailer pool is no different. How well are you going to utilize a trailer pool? Does it add value? Are you better off just live unloading and having the driver have one trailer that he keeps moving with? Even if you got to wait 3 or 4 hours to get it unloaded. So there's always a balancing act being done in logistics with assets and how those are being utilized.
And in the consolidation space, I was at Manifest recently. I saw some cool robotic drones scanning things. I saw some robotic box pickers. There's really cool technology that helps consolidate things quicker. So if you do have that live load that's 3 to 4 hours, maybe I can get some robots and get that puppy down to 2.
Yeah, that's interesting. Those are some pretty cool technologies I know that we have people on our team looking at. We do have some automated automation in some of our warehouses. We have one where we ship wine out of a facility and the boxes are all palletized by a robotic arm, which is kind of cool, and puts them on a pallet together. And so there are definitely technologies that can help do that stuff that we deploy in some cases. From a routing standpoint and optimization of the loads, we've got some technology that's helping us optimize those loads and looking at different loads across different facilities together. And so there are some technologies we help to do that work. I don't think there's any perfect technology out there. I believe in what we used to call automation, which is automation with a human touch. Have a good business process first, and then find a technology that can help you automate that and do it more efficiently. But if you don't have a good business process, you're just automating a junk process, which is going to give you a junk output. And that's been my stance for a really long time, is making sure that automation has a good business process that underlies it. Otherwise, it's garbage.
The secret is you have to know what you're doing in the first place. You're the second person to tell me that today. I spoke with Adam Wingfield, the exact same thing. Doesn't matter what tech you use. If you don't have a business strategy, you're not going to go very far.
Absolutely. That's right.
Well, Phil, thanks so much for your time. We're running short on time, but it's always a pleasure getting to catch up. If folks want to learn more about ODW, what y'all are working on, what's the best way to get more info?
Hey, Thomas, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure of mine. I'm Phil Schmidbauer at ODW Logistics. You can find us on LinkedIn or odwlogistics.com.
Perfect. We'll catch up again soon. I'll have more drone-related questions next time. You wait and see. I'm going to these conferences. I will find them. One has a mechanical claw, so we're going places.
Sounds good. Have fun, Thomas. Take care. We'll see you soon.
I'll see you. That's going to be a wrap for this show. If you're just joining us, though, sign up for the newsletter. It's be on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, wherever you may find your podcast. Get the newsletter. FreightWaves.com/loaded and rolling goes out Thursdays at 2 p.m. We always have the live show or the pre-recorded show. I like to switch it up. You never know. That goes out every Tuesday at 2 p.m. as well. If it starts with a T and it has a 2, you're in the right place. Well, that's a wrap for today's show. Always a pleasure. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next week.